Hello, everybody. Welcome to Check-in with PRB, where it's our usual casual conversations with hospitality leaders. And today, I am very happy, blessed to be with Oscar Rodriguez. Good morning, Oscar.
Good morning, Pierre.
How are you?
Excellent, thank you.
You look great.
Thank you. As do you.
Thank you. So, for people who don't know you, Oscar, I always like to do a quick introduction and who you are. I try to keep it concise and short. Today, we're going to try to keep our discussion anywhere between 30 to 40 minutes, so a bit shorter format than usual. So do you mind if I let people know who you are?
Please.
In a nutshell. So, Oscar, you have been in the industry for over 4 decades in hospitality management and leadership, mainly leadership. Most of your career was divided between the Bay Area, where you spent close to 14 years, as well as Chicago. It seems that you were in Chicago for close to 16 years. So that's where you spent most of your time. You have an extensive Marriott experience, and we will probably talk about Marriott and what it means to you and what you learned with Marriott. You retired or tried to retire in 2019, and we will talk now later on what you've been doing since then, because you are no longer retired. And yes, so back in January 2021, you started a company called Oscar Rodriguez Company, which is a leadership development. You're a leadership development consultant. You've been nominated 40-year Fortune 200 executive, which is fantastic. You hold many awards. With Marriott, you got the Hotel of the Year, the Americas. You got an award for labor relations, for owner relations, and spirit to serve our communities. So your career is impressive, and you are a wealth of knowledge for a lot of people. I know you're a mentor of many people in the industry. So thank you for being with us today. Again, I'm really happy to have you with us. My first question to you, Oscar, will be, why did you come back in 2021 after 4 decades in the hospitality? What happened? And that was in January prior COVID. Can you tell us?
Well, let me clarify.
Sure.
That I consider myself still retired. I consider what I'm doing a part-time hobby, because when you retire, you can do only the things that you want to do and only the things that you love to do. So what I'm doing will not interfere with my other retirement activities, travel, family, etc. So this started out as a result of one goal I had in retirement was to have coffee with 5 people a week, to stay connected, to stay social and so forth. And living here in San Francisco, that's very easy to do because the city's compact. I have a lot of friends and acquaintances and former colleagues nearby. And over the course of a year and a half of meeting with people for coffee and socializing, one of the things that became more and more apparent was that people were struggling with the overwhelming workloads and their ability to balance their personal time with their professional time. And it led me back to earlier in my career when I was in a regional role, and when I would travel to other markets, I would teach time management courses. I felt very, very strong in that area. And I enjoy doing it, enjoy being in front of the audience and helping leaders succeed in that area. And I thought this is something that I can bring to the table, something that I can help leaders with today. And I think there's a need for it, especially as hotels begin to ramp up services and hire people back and so forth, because there's really been no training for most managers over the last year or year and a half. So that's sort of how it started. And that is my goal.
Did the people you were meeting for coffee, did they ask you for help already at the time? Did you see that they were reaching out to you and say, hey, could you help us with, did you had already project coming your way as you were meeting with those people, and that how this came together to say, let's make it more official, or how?
No, no one was asking for help. As a matter of fact, being retired, I felt more like I was a psychiatrist, just sitting and listening to everyone. Once the name tag came off and the official title came off, I think people became even more open in their dialogue. And so no one was overtly asking for help. I just felt that there was a potential need there.
And when you were meeting those people, they were most likely maybe here in the Bay Area, correct? Is that mainly local, or were you just traveling the country at the time? And
it's a little bit of all of that. Certainly local. When I visit my family in Chicago, I would take the train into the city and meet with former colleagues there. Similar discussions. And in addition to in person, I also call people around the country from time to time, again, just to check in and see how they're doing and maintain those relationships that I had during my work years.
did you find them now having more challenges after COVID than prior COVID, as far as what difference did you see in the conversation you were having on your weekly basis? What are the main things that you saw happening between the prior and after COVID?
Well, I see the demand for, I think, what I offer to be even greater, because people who felt overwhelmed back in 2019, just with the volume of business and business demands, are in an even tougher situation because they're struggling to hire people at all levels in the organization, from housekeepers to managers, bringing back leaders, retraining people, and then trying to meet the demands of customers today who still have expectations when they come back of 2019 services. And that's a real struggle right now. So I think they're even more overwhelmed and really trying to stay above water right now than they were back in 2019.
So I'm not going to ask you for your secret recipe, and we won't dig too deep on what you offer to each of your, client and prospect. But how do you tackle such a task? How do you help? Do you look at the organization you're going into to understand the structure of it, and you analyze who does what? How can you tell us the process on how you work with your customers in general? What is your step by step?
Certainly. I really put what I do into two buckets, again, because I'm not intending to do this full time and return to work that way. The first bucket is really around time management and helping people get the right things done well at the right time. And that's really more of a classroom training type of format, and applies to leaders across hotels or across organizations. And I deliver those in typically multiple sessions. In hotels, it's difficult to bring everyone together at the same time. So I may offer a morning session, an afternoon session. Hotels may cluster together, for example, if there's similar company or similar brands, to bring their people together, again, because they don't have a lot of managers right now. So that's an in front of the audience, teaching, training, interactive type of scenario. The other bucket is around team building, team alignment, and that's working with the senior leaderships of hotel teams or other organizations, where you take more of a 1.5 to 2 day format and really help them gain some alignment around their goals, help in the areas that they may need assistance with. For example, I'm going to work with a hotel in another state soon, and part of working with them and setting up the right program is I do intake sessions with each of the people that will be in the session, typically from 30 to 60 minutes each. So I have a strong idea, a better idea of what their needs are based on the individual's feedback, as well as that of the leader of the hotel.
Very well. And what is your personal goal? Do you feel good about helping? Is that what you it seems that you have this need of still being connected with people and helping out. I think it's a big part of hospitality, It's like I look at it as a big family. Is that what drives you? What's really deep in you is you love hospitality. You spent 4 decades in hospitality, so you must love it. What drives you to do this? What do you know? What is the main driver? What pushed you to this? Because you have knowledge in it, but
I will tell you that part of being retired is, again, you can focus on the things that you love to do and leave aside the rest. You can talk to only the people you want to talk to and leave aside the rest. And this is something in my career that I really enjoyed, and that's really helping to develop the next generation of leaders. I think that's where so many people in the hospitality industry, the general managers, get the greatest satisfaction, is seeing someone that they hired and coached and mentored along the way, all of a sudden being a general manager or even more senior individual in the industry. And that's very gratifying. And that's what I enjoy. And that's even part of what I enjoy in my coffee with 5 people a week, is some of those folks are people that I mentored or coached over the years, and we still maintain that relationship. So it's the connectivity with people that I enjoy, and being in front of an audience that I enjoy as well. So because of that personal connection, what I do is in person only. I don't do Zoom training or personal individual coaching and so forth. It really is being with a group of people.
Very good. Well, hey, listen, you should be sponsored by any of those coffee company. Maybe if you know, I'm just suggesting. And in San Francisco, we have a bunch, right? We have Tulis. They do good coffee. Sorry, not here to advertise Tulis, but can you tell us about the San Francisco market? You spend a lot of time here in San Francisco, and you spend some time in Chicago as well, and other part of the world. But could you tell us about what makes San Francisco special to you? Why you've been here for so long, and what do you think is special about this market?
Well, I have to start with the fact that I was born here, born in San Francisco. I have memories of being 3-4 years old here in the city. We did move a little bit south later on, but this is home for me. It's always felt like home. Although I spent almost my entire adult life outside of California, and did have the opportunity to work in 7 states throughout the country. Again, as you mentioned, a lot of years in Chicago, but really in a lot of different locations. So this was really a coming home for me. And certainly the city has changed when I came back in 2008 compared to when I grew up here, obviously as a child and a young person. But there is just something in my DNA that speaks to it. My parents met here, were married here. I'm very familiar with touring the city as a child. I mean, when we were 10, 11 years old, that was old enough to get on the bus, go into the city and spend the day by yourself and roaming Fisherman's Wharf and taking the cable cars. And I still tell the story of in those years, there was a gentleman who cleaned the coins on the overnight shift at the Westin St. Francis. And we would, as 10, 11-year-olds, get off the cable car, walk into St. Francis with a $1 bill and ask for 4 quarters so we could get these shiny quarters. So I was already engaged in city life, so to speak, in the city experience, even as a kid.
Wow, I didn't know that. So
well, that's why you do. This is why you do this.
That's right. Wow, local, huh? One of the few, because there are not too many people. And right now there is some kind of exodus as well, with what's going on. I'm taking note of what you're saying because I find it super interesting. So something I found out about hotelier in San Francisco, and tell me if I'm wrong, it seems that there is a very big camaraderie, like a big friendship between hoteliers. The Hotel Council of San Francisco is very active, and it seems that it's really like a big family again, where you guys don't see each other so much as competitors, but as working in the same industry, and you tend to help each other. Did you find this happening in other part of, you said you worked in other states. Do you see this happening in other states as well than here? Because I didn't work in other states, so I don't know, and I'm curious to see from your perspective if this is specific to this area.
Well, I don't know if it's specific to San Francisco. You certainly see that in other markets where hoteliers know each other and they serve on the same boards and councils and so forth. But I think what's unique to San Francisco are a couple of things. One is the geography, where so many hotels are within walking distance of each other. So it does make it easy to see your peers and participate and have heavy participation in organizations, because it's not like you have to get in a car and drive an hour to get somewhere. You can literally walk from your hotel and walk back. So I think the geography plays into that. But also, by the time you are a candidate to be a general manager in San Francisco, you're likely very experienced. It is a city that requires a lot of prior experience, unique experiences to manage in. So by the time you're at that level, you have a little more maturity to your approach, to your outlook, and you place more importance on the health of the industry versus just your own personal goals and in your own hotel. So I do think that hoteliers here place the entire industry at a higher level. And we do consider ourselves competitors. I don't think anyone would say we aren't, but competitors in a sense that it's friendly, and the success of one is the success of all of us. And I'm still speaking like I'm still part of that community, all when I say all of us, but I found that to be very true. And I think also for me personally, and I saw it in others, that by being a strong participant in the hotel council and other organizations, you also continue to learn. And I think people recognize that.
It is, do you see it as a necessity to be part of local association when you are a hotelier? You have to, it seems like you really, I mean, you need to be engaged with your community, right?
Yes, very much so. And my years with Marriott certainly stressed that. That's part of our community spirit to serve our community's efforts, whether it's in volunteering, political affairs, and so forth. But it's an important industry, particularly in cities like San Francisco, and our voice has to be represented and heard, and that's where organizations like the Hotel Council come into play. But I think that the hotel industry has always been underestimated and underrepresented in terms of media and coverage and so forth of what we do in our communities.
Okay. How do you see the San Francisco market right now? It has changed. You've seen it changed quite a lot over the years. What are the main change that you've seen happening between your start of your career here in San Francisco, when you were here as a general manager, and up to now? What will be the main change you've seen in the city? And trying to abstract the COVID factor. I know it's hard because that changed everything,
Mm-hmm.
but let's think at before COVID. How did you think was the biggest change that the city saw over the last 15 years or so? The city itself.
Well, I think certainly there's a lot that I'm not sure I would speak to today in terms of representing the industry. The issues that the city faces, that customers, whether they're group customers or leisure customers, come to the city and comment on both the positive and those things that the city continues to need to work with to address. I think that the biggest change I've seen is that the hotel community in the time I've been there has become much stronger and a bigger voice and more collaborative with city officials, government officials, and so forth to do what's needed to improve the city services, and so forth. So I believe that there are, we'll see post-COVID, besides the return to business and so forth, that it will coincide with the opening of the subway, the opening of Mission Rock, which is being developed between where the Warriors are and the Giants play and so forth. Even during COVID, a number of new buildings have been under construction and will near completion around Union Square and so forth. So I do think that once sort of the cover lifts, that there'll be a lot of positive to see in San Francisco and a lot of new to see in San Francisco. And I'm pretty excited about that.
Great. Wow. Good. I like those words, those positive words. Are good. So you mentioned Marriott, and you spent quite a lot of time with Marriott, most of your career.
Yes.
Could you tell us what, first of all, attracted you to join Marriott, and what what do you think make this company different than the others?
Well, I started as an hourly employee, and my intent was to stay just a few weeks. I was almost a temporary labor hire. And what I noticed during my first 2 years as an hourly employee was really the strong culture of the company, which is really, it's always been stated as you take good care of the employees, you'll take good care of the customers, and the customers will come back, the revenue will grow. And that's never changed. And I felt that very strongly as an hourly employee. Over the years, I was very fortunate that I was part of a generation that got to know Bill Marriott and even met his father. It was very, very special for me. And I've always felt that, there was the name on the building did represent someone and represented a family. And I always felt that I was running a business for Bill Marriott. And the culture piece is what's been strongest for me. And it's always been part of who we are as an organization. And I've always focused on, through the good times and the difficult times, is to maintain that culture of taking care of people. And it's something I still talk about, obviously, when I have discussions with my former colleagues and peers and those that I coach and mentor.
I'm always curious how a brand can have such impact and resonate so much when it's so big. Because sometimes when you dilute those companies, you're losing contact with the purpose of the company and with what it is, right? So I'm always impressed to see that Marriott has always this very strong feel to its employees, just like a GDV could have, like a small boutique hotel can keep it closed and make it work. But to make it work for such a large company, I'm always impressed by this. And I don't, how do they do this? There are many hotels and many Marriott employees, and people who work for Marriott are always proud. And they are on the same line with what you just said. They feel that they are part of a family and they want to make the guest happy. So everybody is really working on the same goal. What is the Marriott success? I'm not telling you, I'm just asking your insider view on how do they make it work? Because it's a big company and it's challenging to keep it, like this.
Well, I think the challenge as the company grew is something that we always questioned as well. When I started, we had 44 hotels of one brand, and I think only 2 were outside of the United States. So to go, just in my experience, from 44 to over 6,000 or 7,000, whatever the number is, with 30 or more brands, is just inconceivable. And how do you maintain that? Certainly has always been a question. But I think that in my career, one thing that we always saw through Bill Marriott and through other senior leaders were that the general managers really were the core of the company. And as such, it's been our responsibility, the general manager's responsibility, to maintain that culture, to support that culture, to walk that culture. And I can remember many stories, certainly touring hotels with Bill Marriott. And one of the things that he looked for was, did you know the name of every employee that you ran into? Did you know where the boiler room was? Did you know where the cafeteria is? And knowing many contemporaries and other companies and so forth, without mentioning names, there are certainly some leaders that have never eaten in the employee cafeteria. They've always eaten in the dining rooms, or have never really toured their hotels top to bottom and know everyone in the building. And that's a very broad statement. Certainly, there are many great leaders out there in many hotel companies, but it was incumbent on us, in order to be successful, to do those things, to basically demonstrate that culture. It really lies with the general managers to perpetuate that.
Bill Marriott is famous for traveling all the time and going to to a lot of properties, right? From the select service to the full service, he he seems to really have made thousands of miles to meet with the hotelier, right? And everybody at the property.
Yes. Yeah, that was, it certainly isn't as prevalent today, based on his age and so forth. But certainly during the heyday and when I was growing up in the organization, it was not uncommon to have Bill Marriott come through a hotel or a market on a regular basis over the course of the year. And a really high expectation that you'd have the opportunity to meet him, interact with him, and so forth.
Very well. What rewards did you find working in hospitality? What makes this industry so special to you? Why? Because when you started your career, as you said, you were an hourly employee and you were there for maybe a short time. You never thought of doing your and I'm not saying you never thought of it, but it sounds like it was not part of a big strategy. Why did you fall in love with this industry? What do you think that is that you love so much about it?
For me, it's been the enduring friendships that have formed over the years. I was in Palm Springs teaching a course 2 weeks ago, and someone that stopped by to surprise me was someone that I knew my entire 43 years with Marriott. He was on his way to visit family in Los Angeles and made a side trip to see me and surprise me. And he had a very long, successful career at a corporate level with Marriott. But I always remember him as that entry-level assistant manager in his first management job. And when I was a waiter in the restaurant, in the next restaurant next door, we got to know each other and we maintained that relationship over those years. And there are countless stories like that where some of my closest friends have been colleagues and people that I've worked with over the years. And now I think many of us can say we have friends and relationships with people globally throughout the world. So that social nature of the industry is great. And as well as being able to see people that you've worked with succeed, being able to help influence careers and see them grow. I think that's probably one of the most gratifying things about our industry is that there are not a lot of barriers to success if people really apply themselves. And for those that you coach and mentor, to be able to see them grow and succeed is just extremely gratifying.
What qualities do you think it takes to succeed in our industry? What qualities do you need to have in order to become someone like you, Oscar? What do people need to do or to have?
Well, I'll probably speak to a couple of things that were said to me over the years. First and foremost, it's really a business of common sense. It isn't much more complicated than that. And that's something that I read in the biography of the founder, J. Willard Marriott. And it's just apply common sense. Certainly, I've also felt that it's as much your responsibility to learn as it is for others to teach you. It's equal on both ends that you look for the opportunities to grow and learn by applying yourself to that, not wait for others to teach you, but take advantage of what is taught. And certainly the ability to have relationships with people, to be empathetic, to be understanding, to be social. It doesn't imply that people need to be extroverts, not at all. But you do have to like people, and you have to enjoy being around folks. And I think those are very basic, fundamental things about being successful in an industry. It's one that allows people of any background, any education, and so forth to be successful if they apply themselves.
Well, I always say to people, if you don't like people, don't work for the hotel industry, because that will not be that will not be the right one.
Not be the right choice.
Yeah, and patience too, right? Maybe patience is important in a hotel business. Patience with things and.
I think patience, and certainly as you grow as a leader and take on greater positions, you have to be the calm in the storm. You have to be the one that during a crisis, whether it's a hotel that's lost power or whether it's something like COVID, people look to you and you have to be the one that's calm. You have to be the one that is in control, but putting everyone's mind at ease.
You answered the question I had just for you right now, which was, what would be your advice to a GM in those COVID time? Because it's much better, things are coming back, but being calm, you think is what? Leading by example, correct? Like showing that it's under control.
Well, certainly, and I would not dare to give advice during COVID, because it's something that I never experienced and is unprecedented in terms of how it's impacted the hotel industry. But I, again, through my conversations with people over the last year, it has been enlightening. And certainly, I have great respect and admiration for the general managers in all hotel companies that have navigated through this very successfully. It is because of their experience and their care for their people, their desire to take care of their people, and to be the calm in the storm.
How do you see the general industry coming out? How do you think? No one has a crystal ball, but what do you think of 2021 and the years to come? Let's talk about San Francisco and the US market. Let's start with San Francisco. How do you think these years? We're almost there. I mean, it's May, but so we're almost in December. But how the next few years are going to be, you think? And I mean, it's hard to tell. No one knows, but I'm just.
It's certainly hard to tell. And being one that's not in the day-to-day anymore with access to information that hoteliers have, from personal experience, I have been traveling quite a bit the last 2 months, and the planes are full, and the airports are beginning to feel busy, and outlets are open in the airports and so forth. And I believe that there is a great pent-up demand, as has been said many times. I feel that will come to San Francisco. There are many destinations in the United States that you can't get into for the rest of the year. You can't find a national park, a campground, those type of activities are really already booked. So I do think that will help places like San Francisco, where people want to get away for a few days and do the drive-in and so forth. And as restaurants and so forth reopen, because that's really what San Francisco needs to attract the leisure traveler back, is for restaurants, dining, museums, shopping, and so forth to return to being 100% open, which appears to be right around the corner. So certainly leisure will return. It's already returned in some other markets where they've opened sooner, very, very strong. The key to success in San Francisco, as in most markets, will be the conventions and the group business that needs to come back. And I think that will just take a couple of big wins or success stories. Las Vegas is going to have its first big convention in the beginning of June. I think that will be a bellwether for what's going to happen in Las Vegas and other communities. So I think once there's a few group wins, larger conventions, I think that will begin to open the door for people feeling comfortable meeting again in person.
Very good. Oscar, we said we will keep it between 30 and 40 minutes. We are 33 minutes. I'm keeping an eye on the time.
Thank you.
Since you are a San Franciscan, I'm sorry, but I'm going to go into much lighter questions. But what is your favorite place to visit, to walk to in San Francisco? And what is your favorite restaurant in San Francisco or in the Bay Area? Let's say the Bay Area. Let's say the Bay Area. Favorite place to go to and favorite restaurant to go to, if you have one.
Well, asking what my favorite restaurant in San Francisco is like asking who is my favorite child. I don't think I could really do that. But where we live, it's easy for us to walk to the Ferry Building, and we do spend a fair amount of Saturday mornings taking in the farmers market, and now some new places have opened there, and it feels really great. So that's just sort of a norm. The neighborhoods certainly attract us, and even though I was born here and spent a few years as a child, I really didn't explore the neighborhoods until I came back here to do this job here in San Francisco. And it's been a constant journey to explore and see new things around the various neighborhoods that San Francisco has. I think the proximity to the water is what makes the Bay Area unique, that you can hike in the mountains, still see the ocean, We often head down the coast to the first beach that we see, or the second or third beach, whether it's as close as Pacifica or down to Half Moon Bay and beyond. But I think that uniqueness of the geography, to have the bay, the ocean, the mountains, the wine country, and so forth, is what really makes it unique. And it's why I'm still here, even as a retiree.
So, hey, Oscar, are you a Cubs fan, a White Sox fan, a Giants fan, A's fan, 49ers, Warriors?
Well, I grew up here as a San Francisco Giants fan, running home from school to turn on the radio to hear the last few innings of a game, because it was pretty much day games back then. I have always tried to adopt the teams of the cities that I live in, to be a local fan as well. So yes, I am a Cubs fan and so forth. But I do root for the Giants. I am a 49ers fan. I attended the Super Bowl at Stanford back in the early 1980s. The Joe Montana reign. I managed to attend those. So I support the local teams here in San Francisco as a born and bred San Franciscan. But I've also tried to adapt to the teams of the cities I live in, for the most part.
Must have been difficult.
In some cases, yes.
Because in Chicago, you had to choose between White Sox or the Cubs, right? It's a big thing there.
I'll probably offend someone, but it was never a question for me. It was always Cubs.
Okay. All right. Okay, Oscar, before we part ways, are there anything you want to share with everybody watching us? If they want to reach out to you, you are on LinkedIn. Is that the best way to reach out to you? Or, I mean, you can always email me and I'd be happy to put you in touch with Oscar, but how can people get in touch with you? They go to your website, Oscar Rodriguez Company, or how do they find you?
LinkedIn is the best way to reach me. My email address is there and so forth. That is the number one way to reach me.
Okay. Do you want to? Yeah.
Well, just if we're closing,
yes,
so to speak, the one thing I do want to share is that while I'm enjoying this hobby, I'm also a strong advocate for those thinking about retiring. It is wonderful. I'm glad I did when I did it, and I don't regret it whatsoever. So I advocate for it for those that are considering. It's a wonderful life to be retired. It's highly gratifying, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. So this is just a hobby, and I am now also an advocate for enjoying the second part of life.
Very good. Based on what you just said, Oscar, I think I'm going to retire today. I don't know how my company will take it.
Not yet. You're too young. Keep at it.
Very good, Oscar. Thank you very much. Really appreciate your time. If anyone wants to have more information, contact me. Check-in will be back in 2 weeks from now. Casual discussion with hospitality leaders. Oscar, thank you very much. And I hope to see you soon. And we need to get a coffee together, a good coffee. Okay? And we'll work on your sponsorship with a coffee company.
You're on. Thank you.
Thank you, Oscar. Have a good day. Bye-bye.